Look it again.
It's not a good. Slow down there. Somebody crank the volume up to like 200. How's that? A little better? There we go. So it's not a good bell ring if I don't break the bell. All right. Welcome to the greatest Rotary Club in the universe. All right. Phil, you got an invocation for us.
I do. Song.
Little.
That was quite as loud. It's got a different.
All right. Dear Lord, thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us, live in this beautiful valley, this community, our family, our friends. Please keep everyone safe during this snowy season. Bless this Rotary Club with the upcoming auction that we raise enough money for all the efforts that we want to pay for throughout the world. And if you're not too busy, maybe you could send us some of those global warming. I think we're ready for spring. Bless the food. Amen.
Thank you, Phil. Blank salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The four-way test.
Just the truth, is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
How about a song, Chris?
Sticking with our theme of songs you know but don't need the words for, we are going to sing "The Wheels on the Bus," including our driver and the wheels and the driver. So, the wheels on the bus
Go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round, all through the town. The driver on the bus says, move on back, move on back, move on back. The driver on the bus says, move on back, all through the town.
All right. All right. How about visiting Rotary?
It's my pleasure and my honor to introduce to you our visiting Rotarians in the Skagit. Is it called Skagit Rotary? Skagit Rotary. And it's Jennifer Housen. She happens to also be our, well, let me see if I get these straight. So Skagit County Court Commissioner and also Mount Vernon Municipal Court Commissioner. Please welcome Jennifer Housen.
Any other visiting Rotarians? How about visitors, guests of Rotarians? All right. Anything to, I guess, for a board report? We didn't have a board meeting because of the weather. The action of Rotary is going slower this week. Does that ring a bell, Mayor Johnson?
Yes, it does.
All right, why don't we move into announcements and we'll start with you.
Thank you.
So just a couple of things. First off, we're all aware of the snow. I do say that I'm appreciating it on Talcott Street because that's the smoothest it's ever been after about 7 o'clock. So it won't be like that for years, but it's just smooth now. So I just wanted to let you know that garbage was not picked up on Monday or Tuesday. It is today. And we'll do double pickup next week. I know there were a lot of people who were upset about that. I actually heard from my neighbors, they knocked on my door. So I want to make everybody aware of that, just in case somebody asks you. Also, thank you for your forbearance with the plowing that has happened. I did receive calls, in fact, we all did up at the city, regarding the lack of plowing. We did plow. The first time that we had major snow, we did use salt. However, the county ran out of salt, so we've been out of salt for a while. And so we're plowing, laying gravel, and doing the best of our ability. And the second thing that I want to make you aware of is that on Monday and Tuesday, I and other, Mark Pepper and Aaron Bird, we're going to be down in Olympia. And we're going to be asking for some capital asks. One will be for the bar court. We are not familiar with that. It's part of Sedro, and we would be looking to make an addition to our treatment plant here in Sedro Woolley. And then also for the library. We're doing great with the library. We're right on task. We're doing well. It was Senator Wagner who asked us to come back and ask for another $1 million. With that, if we get it, we will add on, do another addition to our library that will extend the possibility of doing more STEM programs and early learning programs, which we're very excited about doing with the library. So those are two of the things that we're looking at. I just wanted to make you aware. Thank you.
I always put mine in the neighbors if there's any. All right, I have a couple of announcements as well, but Danny, did you figure out the Boys and Girls Club schedule?
The Boys and Girls Club Winter Fundraiser, that was supposed to be last Friday, has been rescheduled to the 22nd. The event runs from 5:30 to 7:30. Cost is only $20 a person, or a table of 8 for $200.
And it's right here.
Yep, right here.
All right. So if you can make it to that and support the Boys and Girls Club, that'd be fantastic. All right, the Helping Hands Food Bank is, we have a little bin over here, just a reminder. I'm gonna go spend the night in the hotel tonight. I'm gonna be grabbing all of the available goodies and I'll be bringing them back. Just a reminder to help do that. David Brickett's not here, is he? All right, so David met yesterday with Karen Starkovich of the the Burlington Club, and they are working on the float that I mentioned some time ago. And we have a new idea, Curtis. Instead of having you guys create a big bunch of styrofoam rotary wheels that are hard to store, we found online, and hopefully they're affordable, a inflatable rotary wheel. And that would be way easier for storage that we could use every year on a float. So David and well, the Sedro Woolley Rotary Club, the Burlington Rotary Club, and maybe others are going to be joining to build a float that we can pull in our parade and in the Berry Dairy Parade and maybe other parades. So I think that would be a really great positive thing for Rotarians to be involved with. We're already there for the Logger Rodeo Parade, and we can all jump on the float, the ones of us that are there, and I think that would be a lot of fun. All right, and then the district conference is coming up. Avery, are you going to make it to that?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Mike?
I think you told me to go.
I know, but neither one of you are signed up.
Oh, we're signed up.
No, you're not. You're signed up for pets. Yeah, but now it's a district conference.
We have to sign up to go.
You have to sign up to go. And we're going to participate in the hosting of a hospitality suite on the Friday night of the conference. And so we'll need your help in all that. Yes, Julia?
We want to coordinate that because according to Lisa, they are signed up. They're just not going to the one event, but they're signed up for the whole district conference.
Well, according to our area governor, as of yesterday at noon, they were not. So they're either signed up and we don't know about it, or something.
Hear that over and over.
All right. Any other announcements? Okay, let's move right along. Do we have a raffle?
We can have a raffle.
Run right into charging it up.
All right, so who is happy that it's going to be about 40 degrees today and some of the snow's going to start up? That's the deal. Okay. So today is challenge day. So we're going to challenge, two tables are going to challenge each other. So from this table right here, I need a champion. From this table right here, I need your champion. So go ahead and please stand out, champion. Oh, so stand up. I have a series of questions. First one, first one to miss, your table's going to pay. Are you ready? We'll go ladies first. And I'm not going to give you any time to answer any help from the tables on that at this moment. Oh!
Woohoo!
Are you ready? 7. Boris Karloff starred as Butch Monster in one of the first horror movies. Can you answer? Winner! Everybody makes some noise.
That was almost unfair. Steve on the crystal ball.
All right. Champion from this table. Are you familiar with the water bucket challenge?
The water bucket.
And what is the water bucket challenge? Exactly.
Oh no.
The first person to finish their glass of water wins. Get set, drink.
Go, 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 go.
Okay, this is a math challenge. Okay, give you a sequence of numbers and calculations. First one to give me the answer wins. And I will repeat it to get 2 points. Whoever gets it first. Are you ready? Are you ready? 10 plus 5 minus 3 divided by 2 times by 3 minus 1. Winner! All right, we got happy bucks. Happy bucks.
Right over here, Chris.
Y'all probably remember I announced last November that my daughter Emily was going to be getting married. And that's coming up in August. Well, last weekend my son proposed to his longtime girlfriend, so we're going to have 2 Moser weddings next year.
So I only have $5 left, but 2 things. Last Thursday, I was on my way to Rotary. Okay, so the water main broke at the corner of Metcalf and Berry. And so the restaurant was closed, posted and everything, and I thought, well, I'm gonna go to Rotary anyway. And as I was, and I called PUD, and they said it wouldn't be fixed till the end of the day. So that's why we closed. So I'm driving by, and they were done. And so I ran into the restaurant, and we had water, and I apparently had to run that restaurant because I had people coming in behind me the whole bit, and whatever. So I didn't make Rotary last week. And then I didn't make the chamber meeting on Wednesday, and unbeknownst to me, I would have been there if I'd known. I guess I got an award. So for something, for does something, I don't know. I wasn't there. I got a text from Terry Gifford with Wilbur, and she said, "Congratulations on your award. You go, girl." And I went, "What?" So anyway, I'm happy.
actually get out early today. So our program today is going to be the history of the Rotary auction. So it's going to be really informative, especially for people who have been here less than, say, 10 years. So with that, I would like to invite Phil Mahalik up to, he has an entourage of speakers that are going to talk about the auction. So welcome, Phil.
Earlier, is this on? Yeah, earlier in the year, Carl came up and said that he had a request of a program, history of the Rotary auction. And I'm the program chairman, so I said, okay, I can put that together. So I selected 5 people in order, starting with John Lord, not here, and Rick Tesrick, myself, Keith Sorstad, and Wyrick. If we get done early, we can have comments from those of you that have been chairman over the years, like whatever. So, John Lord, and he's not here, so I'll fake it. From what I understood, the first Rotary auction was sponsored by George Bellows and Henry Fredericks because they went to an auction in Kent. And they thought, well, we could do that. It's better than doing a cookie sale. So I'm told that's the first auction. I don't know what year it was.
It was 72.
72.
72.
Okay. My first auction was May of 1978, and we netted $18,000. I was a new member then, so what was that, 40 years ago. We've improved a lot since then, not just on the money, but the way this is put together. So that's all I can tell you about John's part. I'm sure the weather kept him in. So we'll go to Rick Tesrick, and he can tell us. I gave everybody 5 minutes, so we won't be doing it.
Take longer than 5. You got plenty of time.
I could just I'm going to preface my talk on what I recollect. And the numbers or dates may not be quite right, but they're close. In 1984, I was a new member of Rotary. I volunteered to be in charge of the Rotary auction catalog. Not having any idea what that entailed, Sherry and I had been attending auctions for quite a while before that. I owned Tesrick office equipment at the time in downtown Mount Vernon. We had all the latest technology. We had electronic typewriters with correction. We had adding machines and copy machines. I thought it seemed like a great fit to do the auction catalog. Little did I know. Back then, we kept the live auction to about 25 items, but the silent auction was between 600 and 700 items, including bags of potatoes, loaves of bread, bags of potato chips, cases and cases of pop, and those were all donated from Thrifty Foods in Sedro Woolley. We would take those and then make them in smaller units and write up a silent auction bid sheet for each one of those. Back then, you could get some pretty awesome buys on groceries, trips, and dinners. Sherry, Phil, and Marilyn and I typed every single bid sheet by hand. Phil came up with the Dewey Decimal System for tracking and categorizing household goods, grocery items, lawn and garden, etc., etc. For what it's worth, Vern Sims, and these are things that I just kind of remember. He was auction co-chair, or he was auction chair. He would call Sherry every day at the office, every single day. Sherry, what's our latest total on the value of the auction items donated? And she'd have to add up all those lists over and over again. I don't know what he did with them, but he needed that kind of. Prior to the auction, Phil and Marilyn would join us at the office, and this was after work, to arrange the live auction items, type up the catalog, including all the silent bid sheets. Now remember, there were 600 or 700 of them. make copies of the catalog, and then we would put them together with a cone binder. I don't know if anyone even remembers the cone binders. You had to punch them, and it was a cone about yay big, and had a machine to put it together with. It took us until about 2 or 3 in the morning to do this. In the back room the night of the auction, we wrote up individual invoices by hand from the bid sheets that were gathered, and that sounds a little antiquated, and it was, but at that time it worked okay. In the late 80s, Brian Stiles read something in a magazine about an auction program, and he bought it for the Sedro Woolley Rotary auction, and that changed our lives totally. With the computer system now, we could enter the item once, and it would print out a bid sheet, and it would save that information for the catalog. The night of the auction, you enter the winning bid number, the item number, and the amount, and voila, an invoice is printed. Back then, we were generating between $25,000 and $35,000 net. Our next big step forward was in the early 90s, when Gary and Linda Hansen came up with the idea of having auction themes, which took the Rotary auction to a whole new level. We had Western themes, gala formal events, Hawaiian or Caribbean themes, just to name a few. My year as president, we had a 60s theme, Smile on Your Brother. I don't know how many of you remember that. A lot of people get involved in that, get tied up in the themes. It's a neat deal. But now our live auction descriptions had to kind of match the theme. So Sherry would spend hours on the computer getting all the terminology for whatever theme we had picked. We would have group meetings in our basement or our house in town a couple days prior to the auction, where we would pass out all the live auction items so we could do write-ups on them. When you get Bill and Carol McCann, Phil and Marilyn Mahalik, Louie and Joanne Reekway, and Gary and Linda Hansen's creative juices flowing, along with some wine, quite a bit of wine. You never know what you're going to get, especially later on in the evening. I have written down here sometimes, but all the time, Sherry would do a little editing in the morning before the book would go to publish. At the end of the evening, Phil and I would strategically arrange the auction items on our pool table, knowing which items would sell first and last, or which would fit in this area or that way. And we spent a lot of time doing that. It was a very scientific process. From sitting at the counter at the office, hand typing all the catalogs and every single bid sheet, to a system that we did everything, the Sedro Woolley auction has come a long ways. After 27 years of being in charge of the Rotary auction catalog, it's great to be retired and just enjoy the auction. And Sherry wanted me to mention this, that early on after we had the computer, our son was at Children's Hospital. And we still took the computer down there and did the auction. But that's the way we did it. We just had to get it done. Our auction now has over 50 live items, and that's over $120,000. And we feel it's still the best and the most fun auction in the valley. Thanks.
Some of the things I'm going to say are repetitive, like Rick said. We would get a lot of stuff from Thrifty Foods. It would come on Thursday at 5 o'clock the night before the auction. And I would sit up till 2 in the morning and hand type the bid sheets. So that's the way it was back then. It was okay, we got it done. When Terry Russell was president in 87, 88, he asked me to be the chairman of the silent auction. And of course, we say yes. At that time, the silent auction had no numbering system. Well, they did. It went from 1 to 400. They started there, and they went this way numerically. So the shrubs were in the corner, looking like you know what. next to the tools, next to the hardware, next to the crafts, next to the dog food. There was no organization at all. Since I was chairman, I said, I like the way they got along. So as Rick said, I invented a numbering system for categories, so like items would be with like items. We also used a system where every numbered item had the corresponding number on the physical item versus a duplicate sheet because they got blown around and hard to read. So every item had a number and it worked very well. We evolved to 3 closures color-wise. We had colored bid sheets, but I know that's hard to do with the system they have now, which is a triplicate. After the next year, I was asked to be the general chairman, which I did for nearly 10 years, maybe 10, I didn't keep track. And Linda Hansen said, we need to decorate. They didn't decorate, we were at the Elks at the time. They didn't decorate at all, so Linda decorated. She did a wonderful job. The next year, we came up with the idea of having a theme, as Rick had mentioned. And we had some good themes. We had New York, which was black and white, paint the town red. We had the 50s, country western. It was a lot of fun. And we had to dress up one time with semi-formal. And we're still doing that today. So we started that way back then. We also used to do a physical pre-mailer on the Thursday a week before, and Rick and Sherry, Merrill, and I would physically put it together and get the mail on Friday mornings. And we really believe it's nice to have a physical pre-mailer versus coming off on your computer where you don't print it off, because it's hard to get groups together if you don't have something to look at a week ahead of time. So we did pre-mailers. We had certificates, of course. Joanne Riegre was my certificate chairman all those years. She did a wonderful job. Her and Marilyn would decorate our certificate board with visuals so you could tell the restaurants from the gasoline without reading all of those. I think that could be an improvement now. They didn't do that last year. It's a lot easier if you know what you're looking for, if you can look at the board and see where the different categories are and bunch together. And as I said, we were at the Elks and seated 320. And yes, Vern Sims would ask me, are we going to make more money than last year? And I plainly said, I don't care. And I don't care. My job was to make sure we had 320 people and made sure 320 people had a good time. And I believed, and I still believe that if you keep your nose clean, you work on the details, and you give people a good time, they'll come back, and the bottom line takes care of itself. I don't care how much money we made. It's more than we had the day before, so it doesn't matter to me. Lastly, I'm going to say to everybody here that auction day is a working day, and everybody here that's able to should be there helping as much as they can. Also, everybody in this club should donate. If you're going to be a member of this club, you should donate to the auction. That's what I believe. And thank you. And then I turned that over after 10 years to Key Source Debt. Thanks.
Phil asked me to talk about the 3 years that I chaired the auction with the help of every one of you. And that was from 1998, 1999, and the year 2000. For many years leading up to that date, Ted Vandermeer was the auctioneer, and Ted did a great job. But I don't know if he retired or just decided that he didn't want to do it anymore, but we decided that we were going to go out and make a change. There's a saying that if everything remains the same, if nothing changes, everything remains the same. And our auctions were hovering in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, which is great. As Phil said, it's more than we had the night before. But going with a professional auction group, we decided that, prior to becoming a chairman, I had attended so many auctions throughout the county that I was taking notes and finding out who some of the auctioneers were. And the Mount Vernon Wild Game Auction was one that I took particular interest in, and Stokes Auction Group were the auction company that organized and promoted their auction. And so I had contacted, I brought it to the committee, and we decided that we would put an offer out or ask Stokes Auction Group if they would be our auction coordinator. They were more than just an auctioneer. They were an actual company that promoted. They dealt with just about every facet, every phase of the auction. And personally, I personally feel that they were a great asset and a good move for our Rotary Club. One of the things, nothing that I'm sharing with you is original. I'm not original. But I can steal from just about anybody and any organization. And my philosophy is if it works for somebody else, it should work for us or myself. And somewhere along the way, I saw some auctions. They called it a fund-in item. And our club decided to call it Contribute to a Scholarship. So in doing this, I presented this to the auction committee. They agreed that this would be something that would be a good thing to do. And it caught on. And we generated that year $13,500 in addition to all the other live auction proceeds just for the scholarship program. Many of the attendees at the auction, for those of you that attend, and I would like to think that every one of you do, some of those live auction items get up in the dollars, and I realize, it's a charity and we're there to make money. But some of our attendees just can't afford to shell out $3,000 or $4,000 for a live auction item. So the nice thing about contributing to the scholarship, and one of the reasons why we did it, was it allowed those people that didn't have the financial means or didn't want to contribute to that higher level of giving, and they could select any dollar amount that they wanted to raise their bid card and feel like they were contributing to the bottom line of that event. We had 4 levels of giving, starting at $500, $250, $100, and $50. The other nice thing about contributing to a scholarship, since they weren't buying a specific item, 100% of their contribution was tax deductible. That year, we also increased the number of items in the live auction to 45. It was right around 40, 41 in years prior. So we bumped it up to 45 items. As I mentioned, that was the first year that Stokes Auction Group was the company that helped us with the auction. And Jim Youngers was the auctioneer and continued to be the auctioneer for many years. And the nice thing about using a specific auctioneer, they get to know the people in the group, they get to, and then they can get kind of personal with certain people, and unfortunately, Jim had a way of getting maybe too personal with some people and stepped on some people's toes. But it did generate a significant amount of additional revenue for the auction. But where I was going with that, they critiqued every auction. And the first critique that we got from Jim, I went through it, it was about a 4-page critique. And one of the things that he suggested was, so we were not pushing beyond that 10 o'clock p.m. time. Our live auction started at 8:30, and it was supposed to be an hour and a half and get over at 10 o'clock. He just said, let's just bump it up a half an hour, and let's make it 8 o'clock. And that gives you 2 hours, 120 minutes. And an auction item should take no longer than 2 minutes to present. So if you do the math, 120 minutes at 2 minutes per auction item, he says, theoretically, you could get around 60 items. Well, we didn't go 60 that year, but we did increase it from 45 to 52. We did a lot of pre-arranging of live auction items. These were items that we could sell multiple times. You contact the donor and just say, you know, this is a great item, it should go well. If you'd be willing to do it a second time, the club would be willing to offset the hard cost so that you're not out of pocket that additional revenue. And we, the first year we did that, we had, for example, Air Combat USA sold 8 times at $900. Instead of generating $900, we generated $7,200 just for that one item. And it just went boom. I mean, we sold it 8 times, and that's how we can get up to that 60 items during the live auction. As I mentioned, we had 10 additional sales. The total then raised the 52 items up to 62 items sold, and we increased our revenue from the year prior from $43,000 up to $69,000 that year. And the numbers that I'm sharing with you are just live auction and scholarship. It has nothing to do with ticket sales. It has nothing to do with the silent auction. It has nothing to do with the cash contributions that come in. I'm strictly just mentioning the live, which would contribute to our scholarship. As I mentioned, the intent was to average about 2 minutes per auction item. We also did a sealed bid. It went over okay. We haven't done the sealed bid since then, so it probably tells you how it went. But again, if you don't change, you don't try, you know, you're not going to learn what people like. But it generated $2,600 for 5 items that if they were put on the silent auction, probably would have generated maybe only $1,000. So we increased our bottom line with the sealed bid. So after the 1998 auction, well, I mentioned Stokes gave us the critique. And they suggested that we needed to expand the silent auction items by about 5 minutes, the closing of the silent auction items for about 5 minutes. Prior to that, we were closing them every 10 minutes. And they just felt that was too close. And they suggested to group the items, the lower cost items or the lower valued items in section 1, the moderate to higher priced items in section 2, and the almost live items in section 3. That allowed the people that came late to not worry about the $20 items, but get into the mid-price items, and we found that our revenue for the silent auction increased because of that grouping or sequencing. I don't have a dollar value as to what the increase was, but I just know that when we did our review after the auction, that it seemed to help. It made sense in doing it in that manner. The 2000 auction, which was the 3rd year that I was involved with the chairmanship, we added a spot on the ticket slip that went out for people to contribute or donate if they were not able to be in attendance. Again, that's not an line we've seen in prior auctions, and it seemed to be a real soft way of asking people to send us a check if they weren't going to be able to participate that year. It added a few extra contributions, not a huge amount, but it was a way that people had to contribute. That year also was the year that the club decided that they would send 4 of us Rotarians to the Stokes auction seminar. And I, along with Carl Garrison, Gary Hansen, and Mike Casey participated in that. And I think that was $40. I mean, it was a $160 investment from the club, which has paid many, many dividends since then. That was a great investment, and as you'll see, just by implementing some of the items that were gleaned from that seminar, how it increased the bottom line. We increased the contribute to a scholarship fund from 4 levels of giving, the $500 level being the highest, to $1,000. Bill McCann came up to me one day and said, you know what, the McCann family donates to the scholarship fund anyway, you know, we'd like to, and we give typically more than the $500 level. Could you put in $1,000? So we did. That year we had 7 $1,000 contributors, and it allowed us to generate $22,700 for their scholarship. The first year we made $13,500. The second year we made $16,600, and the third year the club made $22,700. And there was 103 contributors that year, generating that $22,700. It's kind of like it allows people, again, it's kind of like people that can't afford to bid on a live auction item. This gave them an opportunity to get involved in the auction, raise their bid sheet for whatever level of giving that they wanted, and it worked really well. Another item that was a lot of fun, and the reason we added it, it increases the pace of the auction, and that's a bidding frenzy. That year, we had 17 stuffed animals. Remember that, Carl? 17 stuffed animals. These stuffed animals were flying throughout the whole room. And a bidding frenzy are items of like kind. So you could have stuffed animals, you could have restaurants, you could have golf courses. They're like items, and it's just a matter of seconds. And the auctioneer is selling these items just as fast as you can hold the item up or identify what it is. And generally speaking, there may be an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, you get more than face value, and many more times than face value in some of them. Some of these stuffed animals went for $150.
Oh, yeah, we sold those things, those stuffed animals brought in like $2,200.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, you got a good memory, Carl.
Well, I think
yeah.
Dan Simmons got a good memory.
Yeah.
$125 for one.
The other thing that I did, I must have seen it, somebody told me about it, because again, I'm not that smart or that original, but I put together an auctioneer's booklet. I am notorious for collecting data and paper. I've got 4 banker boxes full of auction catalogs and receipts of what the club has made each year. And what I did, and the reason that it helped Jim Youngers was, first of all, we enlarged the print. So instead of looking at small print, they had something that they could actually read the night of the auction by holding it out a little bit away from them. The other thing that it did is I gave them like a 3 to 5 year history of what that item had sold for in prior years. So instead of wasting time on trying to figure out where is the hot button for that auction item to start to bid, they know within a couple $100 as to what they can start to bid at. And it saves a lot of time, allowing them to sell more items that night. It also allowed me to indicate, because I also got the sheet of names as to where people were going to be sitting, and we had table numbers on each of the tables, as we do today. And the auctioneer then, I would put table number 18, and then after the item, or before, depending on what he wanted to do, he would acknowledge the donor and would know what table, so we could be looking at the table instead of somebody standing up here and then looking over at Nick or somebody of that nature. So he could identify them and give them some recognition for being the donor of a live auction item. Basically, in summary, the Sedro Woolley auction would not be possible without the total support of the club and the generosity of our attendees. Through this collective effort, we were able to increase the live auction and scholarship revenue from $44,000 in the 1997, the year before, the 3 years that I was involved with the chairmanship, to $56,000 in 1998, $85,500 in 1999, and just in the live auction items and scholarship alone, in 2000, we topped the $108,000 mark. Thank you for the opportunity to share this 3-year history with you today.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of expertise in the room, and I he was the auction chair, I was the silent auction procurement chair, and that's where I popularized the saying, repetition is the mother of retention, right? That you're also, yes. That was to get you to all get your donations in on time. That was the point of that. I want to go back to John Ward. He and his sister Barbara did what the art room for years. Does anybody remember when that started? It was before my time. I started the club in '96. Phil, you have any remember?
Before my time, it was there from.
Okay, so one of the things that you may not know is that we used to have the auction at the Elks Club in Mount Vernon. That's where the venue was. And they had this one little room off to the side, and that was the art room. And Barbara Ward Thompson and then John, Barbara would go down to Arizona every year and buy art all winter long, and then come back and they would turn in, 40 or 50 slips of art that we then sold in the auction. And they were very passionate about that project for years and years. Let's see, the year that I took over the auction, we were soaring up and up and up, and the sky was the limit, and then I took over. And, I was new. I didn't have all of the experience that Rick Tesrick, and of course, fortunately, Rick and Keith, they helped still. But one of the things that we decided to do was change venues from the Elks Club, because I think it was closing. And we had the bright idea of going to the Skagit Casino, the new casino room. And they promised us that we could fit 330 people in that room. And you could, standing room only, pretty much. And never mind that we had tables and chairs and everything else. And it was essentially a disaster. So my first year was a struggle to do the auction and pull it off, but also it was disastrous because we just didn't have enough room. And the silent auction just torpedoed because everybody was crammed on the mezzanine, and it was just really a bummer. And we even may have lost a Rotarian or two because we did it there at the casino, and then there was some grumblings about doing it at the tribe location. So, needless to say, we licked our wounds after that, and we decided to find another venue, and that's when we moved to the St. Joseph Center, the Catholic school. And that worked out pretty darn well for several years. I don't know, 10 or 15 years we were there. And we were at 108,000 maybe total on your last year, and then my year we were probably 94 or something, and then my second year we were over like 120, and so things were going back in a much better direction, and they've done nothing but go up and up ever since. We've had, our second year was right after 9/11. That was another thing that was pretty hard. So I don't think we killed it on the money that year, because if you remember 9/11, everybody was worried about everything, and the economy kind of just stopped because it was right after the 2000 gold rush of the dot-coms. And so we survived, and we did really well considering, but it was a definite challenge on my second year too. And then we did the third and fourth year were much better, and I ended it at 4 years, and that's when Rich, I think, took it. Rich, didn't you take it over from me then? So you've been doing, how many years you've been doing this?
I took it over.
And Mark,
Oh, Mark, okay, yeah, I guess, well, you can talk about that maybe. Anyway, I wanted to leave you with one little story about two stories. One is, if you were there, you would remember and think fondly of Gary Hansen as a spotter with Jim Youngers. Jim Youngers was this big guy. He was just big, grin, smiling, and just really funny. And then to have Gary Hansen raising the bid pedal for people, it was hilarious. And he would pick the right person to do that with, of course, and go to bid the bid and something they really didn't want to bid on. That's one of my most fond memories of our auction, the actual auction itself. And then another visual for you to ponder on, and I'll pass the microphone off at this point, is that, can you imagine Al Armstrong, who used to own the appliance store, driving back from Vegas with his car stuffed with 17 or however many stuffed animals? These were big stuffed animals. He had every square inch of his car stuffed with stuffed animals, and he won in Vegas. So, anyway, with that, who's next?
Thank you. I've been doing, this is the 5th year that I've been doing the auction. And we moved out to Skagit Center, which was Christ the King, or I guess it still is, but it's called the Skagit Center. Because I went to an auction down in Tulalip, and I was sitting with some people from Mount Vernon, and they said, well, we're gonna have this auction out there. We haven't quite finished the facility yet, but we'll do it there anyway. We're gonna do it there anyway. I went out and looked and said, you know, this might work. So it wasn't quite done. We had some fall to all with it this year, but it's worked really well, and it's been a really good place for our auction. One of the things that I think what makes our auction good, I've been told this by a number of people not in our club, is that they feel, and it's kind of been touched on, is that they can go to our auction and they can buy something. They can actually walk out with a physical item. A friend of mine goes, he says, you know, Rich, I get to buy an extension cord, you know, for $20 or whatever it is. So everybody gets an opportunity because we do have so many silent items. And my favorite memory of the Rotary auction took place much before I was the co-chairman. We had just gotten a brown Labrador Retriever and had it for a couple of weeks, and it came to the meeting right before Mike Crawford got up and gave a stand, you know, bid high, and, you know, make sure you bid so you can keep going, and we did, and Labrador Retriever came up, a little golden Labrador Retriever. My wife went to the bathroom, and I did just what Mike did. Somebody bid $500, and I went $600 because I knew it was going to sell for $1,500 or so, and nobody else bid. I still have the dog, and it's the best dog I ever had. Limping around, kind of like me a little bit, but it's still been the best dog. It was the best thing I ever bought or paid for at the Rotary auction. You know, last year we grossed $207,000 and had about a net profit of about $170,000. I think we can do better this year. The first year I took over, I think we did about $210,000 or $215,000. Dropped off, I think, the third year a little bit, but we've always been up in that figure, and I'd like to increase it. One of the things that we've emphasized is we've tried to get sponsors, and so here's a call out for you all to get a sponsorship. I'm going to get Carl to send out the sponsorship letter to everybody, and if you've got a business or know a business that could or be willing to be a sponsor, this would be their opportunity to get some publicity, donate to a good cause, and help the things that we do. So you'll all be getting that if you haven't. We've done, Bruce Berglund and John Janicki have been kind of in charge of it so far, and we're doing very, very well in getting a bunch of sponsorships. So I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to increase the gross that we have this year. Without Sue Stratoff, Rick Lemley, who are the co-chairs for pretty much every year except last year, Sue wasn't. Sue handled the computers, and if any of you that know me in computers, we would have not made any money if I had been that part. Sue's did a wonderful job. She's now training Danny and I can't remember who else to do that. So that's been a big help. Rick's run the silent auction. Rick, do you want to say something about that? It's your first chance of the year. Okay. You know, we've done some different things. We did the sponsorships. We started the Wheel of Fortune, which is the thing there. Before that, we were doing a ring toss, but Wayne Ramsey kept coming in because he went to so many carnivals, he kept winning all the booze, so we had to stop that. The money the time's getting short, so, you know, we need everyone's help this year. You know, there's some people David Bricka has been a great help. Decorations and all that somebody else started. Daryl Heisler is taken over for the Tesericks as far as getting the program done. And without those people, this thing would not be a success. Lynn Tucker's around security. There's too many people to really name. But we need your help this year. The theme this year is Caribbean Christmas. I take no credit for that. That's Mr. Janicki in the back's idea. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And if you've got any ideas for games or things to make it fun for people when they come there, That's what we're looking for. We don't want people to just kind of wander around and da-da-da-da. We want them to come there and be able to participate, and we get some money out of them at the same time. That's a great thing. You know, Dan Sims has his flower basket raffle that's been going on, and so that's been a great thing, and everybody looks forward to that every year. You know, that's the, you know, we've had things that have failed. The mystery artist, I'm not sure was the best idea. Bruce Bergman donated a knife again this year, and he did instead of auctioning it off, we're going to have this board. You buy a chance for $50, and for those of you that can't afford to buy the knife at the auction, this may be your opportunity to win one. So if you want to get in on that, please do. With that, I'm going to say that's kind of what I can tell you in this brief time, and Rick may have something to say, because he's going to start bugging you.
I'm going to take the lectern back because we're running out of time, but you can come up and make the announcement. You just can't have very much time to do it. I'm policing you.
We'll come to court here. Phil, when was it? About 2005, you came to me and says, I'm turning this over to you, handed me a 3-ring binder and says, you're it. Here's a procurement chair. Take over, figure it out. So for about 14 years now, 14, 15 years, I've been the backroom guy that's collected all your wonderful items and kind of the keeper of those items, trying to keep from getting them. I think over the years, we've only lost one item. Unfortunately, it was a necklace from Gary Hansen's daughter. Don't know where it went, haven't found it at work, any of that. So, but as Carl said, repetition is the mother of retention. Over the next couple of months, we'll be going over this slip several times so we get it right. Remember, when I see the pink, I'm going to see red. You don't want pink slips here. Those go to the donor. But as I said, over the years, the number of items has grown and grown. 400, 500, 600 items is awesome. This year, I'm going to put in a request, and I'll tell you, as things go on over the next couple months, if you have a larger item, you know, something that's going to be this big by this big, or something. The item that Carl brought is about as big as I want to get. We've changed some things for our inventory location.
This is me bugging you to hurry up.
Okay. Don't bring bigger items till later into the year. Smaller items I have room to store with, but now we've changed some inventory things, so I'm running out of room. We'll go further into that later.
All right. Thank you so much.
Out of time. Time flies when you're having fun talking about all of our good times with the audience. I really appreciate that. Next week we have a trip to Uganda to take. The Martins will be helping us with that and with that. Oh, we don't have to break down the tables today. What else?
Valentine's Day.
Oh, there's one thing that you need to remember. It's Valentine's Day. Oh, good sweetheart. All right.